Welcome to the Meraki and Illinois College webinar, a winning esports combination. So in just a second, I will introduce Mark and Patrick from the college, and we'll kind of talk about their story and why they chose Meraki and how it's kind of changed their environment. So we're really, really excited to have them joining today. So I'm going to go through some initial slides, and then we will jump into their story, which will definitely be the most exciting part of this webinar. All right, so let's talk about a little overview and an introduction for today. My name is Sammy. I am an account manager here at Meraki. I actually cover the state of Indiana. So welcome. Thank you for joining today. Let's talk about why Meraki. We'll go over a quick introduction, why the school chose Meraki and their case study. We're actually going to go into a live demo and look at Illinois College, their dashboard itself. We'll talk about the Meraki solution. And then if you are interested in Meraki, we'll talk about next steps for you. Perfect. So if you are attending this webinar today and you're an IT professional, that means you are eligible for an MR33 with a 3-year license. So you can't have received an AP before, but if you are an IT professional, not a partner, not a reseller, you register with a company email address and you confirm your shipping address, that means we will send you this access point. So if you were not sure if you qualify or not, head over to meraki.cisco.com/free-AP and you can see more details there. And again, just going over claiming your free device, make sure you review the eligibility requirements, connect with your Meraki rep. They are more than happy to help you out if you have any questions and get that gear sent out to you. We just ask that, again, you confirm your shipping address. Great. So let's talk a little bit about Cisco Meraki. For those of you who are Meraki customers currently, this might be some information you've already heard. If you're brand new to Meraki, this is stuff you probably haven't gone over yet. So simplifying IT with cloud management. So the whole deal behind Meraki and kind of what separates us from some of our competitors in the marketplace is the cloud management ease of use, single pane of glass. Right, that's our whole story. You can manage and configure your network through a single pane of glass. We want to make it as easy as possible for IT professionals. So the story behind Meraki, actually our founders went to MIT. This was based on a project that they were assigned, and the idea behind it was free to net, right? They wanted to configure and manage their access points without having to go outside because it was so cold in the winter in Boston. So that's where this idea of cloud management was born. And you can see here that we've really expanded that portfolio. I think a misconception is that, oh, Meraki, you know, they only do access points. Nope, we have security cameras, we have Meraki Insights, we have switches, we have our security appliance on top of our APs, right? So there's a full portfolio, and Meraki is actually one of Cisco's fastest acquisitions, right, in growing the portfolio. So let's talk about this idea of out-of-band cloud management. We get this constantly, this question from customers, and I do especially for my education customers, right, whether that be higher education or K through 12. You know, how does this work? Does user traffic pass through the cloud? No, it does not. Only the management data actually passes through the cloud. So questions around security. If you have any additional follow-up questions, I highly, highly recommend you check out meraki.cisco.com/trust. We do a deeper dive kind of into reliability, uptime, security. You can see here on this slide, we're fully HIPAA compliant, we're PCI compliant. We have third-party audits frequently, push out automatic firmware updates. So any questions you have relating to how does it work? Will my network stay connected? Let's say connection to the cloud is interrupted. Is my network still going to function? Yes, it absolutely is. So again, if you have more questions about this, connect with your Meraki rep, but I highly recommend going to that site listed below. So let's do a deeper dive into why Meraki, especially for higher education teams, And this is exactly why Mark and Patrick are on the call today. We're going to do a deep dive into these 4 different SKUs here. So we're definitely going to talk about high density, right? High performing wireless without the high maintenance. We actually have a great story to share with you later about their deployment specifically and how Meraki Wireless made it so easy and so cost effective for them to do it. Safety and security. This is huge right now, especially in the education space. I can't tell you how many times I'm having conversations with CIOs and superintendents and principals, saying that safety is no longer a nice to have, it's a need to have, right? We need physical security on campus. So we'll do a deeper dive today into the Meraki cameras and what that entails. Built-in tools, easy to use, right? The whole idea behind Meraki is that it's a very simple platform, but it does a lot, right? It's extremely powerful. So simple doesn't necessarily equate to not powerful, right? The Meraki solution absolutely is. So we want to make this out-of-the-box tool really easy for you guys to use with outstanding analytics. So you can use those analytics to make smart business decisions, right? And then we're also going to talk about API integrations. And Illinois College has a really cool story about, using the APIs with Bluetooth beaconing, and we'll get into that a bit more, how they're customizing APIs and doing cool things on campus. Here's the slide we wanted to throw in, some universities, colleges across the U.S. that are currently using Meraki, right? Some big names that you probably see here. So again, that conception behind, the Meraki so simple. Do we have these high-end education enterprise customers with massive deployments? Yes, we absolutely do. And let's get into the fun stuff. So Mark and Patrick, are you there with me?
Yes, we're here. We're here.
How are you guys?
Good, good.
Awesome. So before hosting this webinar, I had never heard of eSports, didn't know what it was, had no idea there were actually colleges giving out scholarship money and that eSports was this huge program. So we're going to dive in here. I'd love to hear a bit more about your school in general, and then we can really deep dive and talk about how Meraki's changed your network, what eSports is, what it's meant, and go through there. So do you guys mind giving a quick introduction and talking a bit about your school?
Sure.
Awesome.
So, as you see here on the slide, we are a private liberal arts college in Central Illinois. We were founded in 1829, so we're actually the first college in Illinois to have classes, which was kind of a cool thing. So we've been around for a while. We have about 1,000 students, 250 faculty and staff, plenty of buildings, as you can see there, for our size, I guess. And one of the keys for us, you see there, we're an 8-person IT team total. So it's really important for Mark, who's our primary on taking care of all the network stuff, to be able to take vacations at times, I think. So, one of the things I'll say right off the bat with the change to Meraki was that somebody like me with no knowledge of how to do something in command line to make a switch change VLANs, for example, can now do those little things and reboot switches and keep things running for the most part, so Mark can have a life as well.
It's always important for IT teams to have a life outside of their job, right?
Right, absolutely.
Yeah.
And as we say there, certainly everything starts with a reliable network. We started with Meraki in 2012, right? And we started with switches and access points. We now have the firewall, the cameras, and having everything in one place has been really, really great. Our network has gotten better every year. We do an annual survey to all our faculty, students, and staff, and those results you can see them. You can see a change, especially with our deployment to the high density in the dorms last summer.
Awesome. So let's kind of talk about that. Your high density deployment, let's talk about pre-Meraki and post-Meraki. So kind of tell us why the shift. You mentioned earlier lean IT teams, you don't have a ton of bandwidth, right? Was it just it was time to upgrade? Why Meraki? Why was it so appealing?
All right, so basically we started out when I started here in about 2005, and I took over the network in maybe 2010. And we had a bunch of like older HP switches, and we started to deploy some Cisco access points because we had purchased a Cisco 6509 core, and we had the Wisdom blade in there to control all those. And the decision was made eventually, like maybe 2 years later, that the solution was working, but it just was not super easy for us to manage, basically by myself at that point. So we started looking at different alternatives for switches, because the switches were getting really old, and we had gone from a flat network with no VLANs to a bunch of VLANs, and we were just trying to figure out what's the best thing for us to do. We actually had a former Cisco sales engineer, who came to us from knowing him from Cisco. He came to us and actually had said, "Hey, there's this really great new company out there that's starting to do some pretty cool stuff." And it was pre the Cisco acquisition, and we were really gung-ho into getting into this, and we ended up having the largest switch deployment that they had in the country, and we ended up switching out all those Cisco APs. He actually offered us a deal on the trade-in at that point, and we just went kind of gung-ho from there and replaced everything, right from the thing. We still have the Cisco core and all that stuff, but we went from all the edges, all Meraki for that, and we've been really, really happy with it. It's just made our lives a lot easier.
Right. From, I'm sure, a management perspective alone, right? Going from, having many, many different platforms to only having to learn one.
Right. And we were, with a couple of Cisco switches that we had gotten in place, in places that we needed to add new stuff, we were finding that it just wasn't as easy for us to go. We would like to go out and do the firmware updates and all that stuff, but we necessarily weren't doing that all the time because, it was a go to the switch probably most of the time and, set up an FTP thing and do this and that, and it was a lot of headache for a small department, and we didn't end up doing it as much as we should have.
Right. So one of the things when we were prepping for this call that I thought was really interesting was a story that you guys shared with us about the deployment of the Meraki APs that you had purchased, right? So tell me a bit about the story. After you decided, yep, we're going to go with the Meraki APs, you had quoted a vendor, is that correct, to get a quote to see how much it'd be to actually deploy the APs, and then decided going against that. So do you mind sharing that story?
Sure. Yeah, we work really closely with a partner in Indiana for getting everything from access points, computers, and servers, and so they also have professional services. So we just sort of reached out to them. We had originally looked at potentially having another company totally provide our residential network, and got that quote together and then kind of compared that to, okay, what it cost us to actually build out high density and do wireless the right way in the dorms. And it was a huge savings to just do it. And then with our partner, like I said, we looked at professional services to actually have them come and deploy all the access points and run the wiring and everything. And that was going to be about $120,000, even for a small campus like ours. So I'll let Mark talk more about what we actually did.
But we started to look at it. Basically, the layout that we were going from was we had a bunch of access points in the hallways, and we were constantly getting complaints that sometimes in some areas where an access point might not have been near the door for a student, they would close their door and they'd lose wireless. So we started looking at the whole possibly going every dorm room or every other dorm room, and we finally had like a real site survey, done and figure out exactly what we really needed to do to make us work the right way. And we did that, and that didn't cost us anything because it was through the company that we purchased the equipment through. And then, we ended up having to go out and maybe buy some different kind of brackets and stuff like that to attach to the Meraki brackets and, you know, do it the way we were told in the site survey. But myself and a student worker basically went out and performed the installation ourselves, and it was really time consuming, but it was really kind of awesome too, because the student got to see, you know, how to do this sort of stuff, and we ended up with MR30H as the hospitality access point, and the students now go from having originally 2 ports in their rooms to having the Wi-Fi unit right there with them, and also having 4 ports on the bottom too. So that's been really, really nice for them as well.
Yeah, wow. And you know, from a budget perspective, really the only costs for our capital budget for that summer were, you know, what they needed for materials for things like, you know, the cabling and the wire molding and stuff. So pretty close to zero, as it says there on the slide, and certainly not anywhere near 120,000. Right. And I guess I could say too, Matrix Integration is our partner, and I will plug them just because they are a Meraki partner, and they do, if you're anywhere close to Indiana, they will come and do a site survey for free, as Mark said, and really help you get things going. So they're a great partner.
Yeah, absolutely. I can vouch for that. I work with them constantly. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that story, you guys. It's really interesting. And just, I think, a great example of how simple and easy it really is to deploy Meraki, right? It's pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. So let's kind of jump to access points and switches. I know this is a huge part of your network and your refresh, and we have here kind of bullet points of, I think, why they've been so helpful for you guys. But if you wanted to dig into, we can start with the AP specifically, things like hidden SSIDs for video game devices, being able to authenticate students via Active Directory, right? Anything that kind of pops out at you is kind of like mission critical feature sets of the APs that you'd want to share with other higher ed institutions, or kind of what's been really, really nice for you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. So we did choose MR30H, just like I said, because of the hospitality option with the, you know, the ports on the bottom, and those have been great. The 52s, we've actually had those in the classrooms for 2 years now, and then this will be where we're replacing all the other edge places in the collection, you know, like place where people, you know, gather. We're replacing all those with the 52s this summer. We currently have 2 student and 2 faculty SSIDs. We were kind of working on some issues with the, you know, the difference between the 2.4 and the 5 gigahertz, and I think that was a lot of our problem with access point placement, but we got that figured out. So that's probably actually going to reduce back down to 1. We have a hidden SSID for video gaming devices. We don't want it out there publicly for people to connect to necessarily, but it allows them to not have to authenticate their device with Active Directory, which we do, you know, as part of the way to keep the student network secure. So the students are told about that when they start. It just basically allows them to get to the internet. It won't let them to get any of the servers on campus or anything like that. It just has kind of an open connection limited to about 10 meg, you know, out to the internet. The guest network is just a really limited internet connection. We've actually blocked a lot of, you know, even Dropbox and stuff like that, but people can get on to, you know, use some sort of chat program or whatever they may want to connect when they're on campus. And occasionally, if we have like a large group coming to campus, we'll open that up a little bit further, but it's super easy to do in one place, and we can just do it and it's done. Like I said, students authenticate via directory, faculty do WPA2. We do traffic shape quite a bit with the core, with the MX450 that we use for the firewall, and we also do it with the access points as well in some places too, just to kind of keep things a little, you know, we only have a gig going between each building currently, so we want to make sure that we don't overload those circuits, and we do a pretty good job of that with some of that traffic shaping on the APs.
I'll just jump in and say one of the things, like for example, with the clearance process, when all the new students are moving in the fall, it makes sense a lot of times to like go in and turn off certain SSIDs. Like we don't want the student one on necessarily, we don't want the guest one on. on those days, because we really want, you know, everybody that's working, our full-time staff that's working there, helping everybody to be able to get on the wireless and not have any issues. And those sort of changes, I think, for Mark are relatively easy to go in.
I basically just have all the APs tagged by the building name, and I can just remove that building tag from the system and turn the SSID off on that, you know, on that network in that.
Yeah, and that's I think, pretty significant change from what we would have had to done in the past.
Right. Yeah, and the switches have been great. Right, exactly. Yeah. The switches have been great. I haven't really had any issues with those at all. We don't probably use all of the layer 3 functionality that's been made available, but we're happy to see that was actually, like, you know, we have the oldest style, I believe, the MR42s and or the MS42s and the MS22s, and those, you know, they turned that on for us in those, and, you know, it was really nice with the firmware upgrade, you know, over, you know, one day when we came in and it was available, so that was kind of nice. So it's not swapping out hardware or anything like that necessarily for all the features. Some things that's the case, but, you know, it's nice that we can get updated features on older devices, you know, when it's there. But yeah, we can schedule, you know, ports to reset if we want to for certain things. We have devices that caused some problems if they would lose connectivity or they would stay connected too long, and we would actually reset those. And we actually solved a printing thing by creating access so they can't bypass the paper cut system that we use, and that's been really great too.
Awesome. Huge time savers there. And the stuff you were talking about in terms of traffic shaping, SSIDs, especially on the AP level, we'll get into that on the demo and actually look at your dashboard to see, you know, how you guys have configured that. On a high level, we don't have to go through all of this because I know we're definitely short on time today, but you guys have a full stack Meraki network, which means you've got the security appliance, you've got systems manager. I definitely am going to do a high level dive of the security cameras. Anything here in terms of feature set that was like a massive game changer for you, or, you know, as, you know, professionals in the higher education space that was like, I wish every college was doing this. Like, this was critical for us. For any of these product SKUs?
I would say definitely for the cameras, that was a huge thing for us because they did kind of cut back on some positions around campus, and one of them was the person who was taking care of the, you know, the original camera system as part of his job. And, you know, they kind of approached me about putting more cameras out there, and I was like, I don't really know a whole lot about cameras, but I saw that Meraki had come out with some, so we purchased a few and tested them and really liked them. And the big feature that I liked about those was the actual fact that they store the video footage right on the camera itself, and I think that probably made Patrick happy as well because we're not spending money on storage space on a server somewhere. And, you know, we have another system on campus that's part of a camera system. It's a little bit older, but it does, you know, it's a constant issue with if there's a lot of movement, you know, it does fill up a lot of space, and we have some problems there. But we're seeing currently with some of the cameras in place anywhere from, you know, with the motion capture part turned on, we have it set. I mean, it may not, it says it could save anywhere from like 30 to, you know, 90 days, depending on the, you know, depending on how much motion they get on them. So it's been pretty great.
And I think that's an important point too, the security, like how granular Mark can get when he's assigning rights. So for example, he can give, you know, our security officers on campus the ability to see the camera so they can't touch any of the rest of the network. I think a previous slide noted we had, you know, 5 of our IT staff members can log into the Meraki Dashboard, but we can't all make changes to everything and that sort of thing. So I think that part is important as well. Yeah.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you brought that up because when we demo the cameras, it's something I want to talk about, right? The ability for admin users to give credentials to other folks, and you don't have to limit it, right? It could be a security team on campus. It could be the CIO. It could be, right, the police department. Within a matter of 30 seconds, you can share permissions, and I know especially for education, that's a huge feature.
You don't want to give the CIO too much, though. It might cost.
The less he knows, the better.
Right. I'll mention, too, I guess the Bitcoin thing was important for us because we had an issue this spring, and you know, for the Meraki firewall to catch that had been installed on a computer that, systems manager lived on, and that it was trying to go out, First of all, it was blocking it, but it also pointed us in the right direction of where it was happening, and then we actually had a camera in the room. So it kind of, it was all a good Meraki story there to pinpoint where that Bitcoin mining was coming from and get it stopped, because, it is, using a college resource and the kind of wear and tear it can do on the machines it's installed on. So I think that's probably a concern on all campuses right now, as far as whether or not, students are doing things that they shouldn't be doing with Bitcoin mining as valuable as that's been lately.
Right. So it was a student device that had Systems Manager Agent downloaded on it? That's how you were able to discover it, or what's the story there?
No, it was actually like a lab computer. But it had, graphics card powerful enough to do what it needed to do, and they had the ability to log in with credentials and install it. So anyway, it was great to be able to, like I said, find it and put a stop to that and address the situation within really a couple of days.
Right. A lot of visibility into what's going on in your network.
Right.
Awesome. Well, hey, I wanted to jump over to the eSports section, right, what this webinar is all about. This is fascinating to me, like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, and I actually did a bunch of research after Mark and Patrick and I talked last time, just to learn a bit more about it. But if you guys, for those folks who are on the call who are completely new to this idea of eSports, or just interested to see how your college has kind of adopted this model and what you've done with the program, I'd love for you guys to give kind of a high-level overview of how it came about, how it started, and how Meraki's playing into that story.
Yeah, so the eSports program here is a strategic initiative. It's sort of a new pipeline for the college. If you go to ESPN.com, for example, there's a section on eSports. The championships for some of these competitions are, getting more viewers than the NBA finals. It's huge, and it's growing. It's still growing, more followers every day. So, we saw the potential there, and the students, what we've noticed is it's not just the students that want to compete, it's the students that want to be at a school where it exists, where they want to go watch it, and they want to hang out in the room. And so it's been a really cool thing. One of the things that we found out along the way, though, and we first started, was that it's not just making sure that you have the bandwidth to do it, it's also like latency. So they, reported to us that latency needs to be, 15 to 17 milliseconds, something like that. So we were able to reach a solution with Meraki, got a couple of, what was it, Mark, MX450?
Yeah, MX450. Mm-hmm.
On campus, and now, so we were able to deliver to them the sort of not only speed but latency that they need, because just like any other competitive sport, having the right equipment and that sort of thing, it makes all the difference. So for them, if the latency is too high, then they're slower than the other team, then how are they going to win? They don't have any competitive edge. So it was a learning experience for us, but I'll say too that we have a student that's part of that eSports team that actually works for us. He's working this summer, and one of the cool things about it was, I don't think that he would have necessarily ever went to college. He was so interested in eSports. He was, a gamer himself and played, but wouldn't have necessarily came here, and now he's here. He's doing great in his classes, and just like a lot of sports, you may not end up being a professional, but it brought him to college, and he's likely going to come away with a degree. So I think it's been a great program, and Meraki has been a great partner in getting us the equipment that we need to make it successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's incredible. I'm blown away by this whole world. So kind of looking forward here in terms of projects that you guys have upcoming, on the campus, do you kind of want to take us through what's next in this queue for you guys? You now have this center, this eSports center that you kind of got off the ground with the help of Meraki. What other projects do you have coming down the pipeline that are interesting to you guys? Do you want to elaborate on kind of what's next?
Sure. So one of the things that we've had, and we've had two pretty large events in the last couple of years in our large gymnasium. We have a very nice fitness center that, it's really great for all the sporting events, but when it gets really crowded, the Wi-Fi just doesn't really cut it because of the amount of APs that we have in there currently. And we also, to a point, we run into issues with even cell phone coverage if enough people show up. So one of the things that we've looked at is actually we've had a survey done to do a large deployment of, it's going to be about 11 MR42s with some larger, directional antennas, and we're going to probably have pretty good coverage for about, I've heard upwards of 2,400 people in that gymnasium, so that's the plan for that. We've been having a student worker who's a kind of internship sort of program working on the Bluetooth beacon API integration. One of the things we'd like to do is, since all the MR52s we put in the classrooms a couple years ago have the Bluetooth beacons in them, we were looking at the possibility of even having a thing where they can pull up our app and find directions for that classroom that they're specifically standing in, to see how they use the podium or maybe log into the computers or that sort of thing. So that's been something that we've been looking at with the Bluetooth beacon integration. We already actually almost are completed with our summer project to upgrade all the wireless. My student worker that helped me last year, I went easy on him this year by just having him replace APs, and he has gone gangbusters and replaced about 150 access points in 3 weeks. We just got them. He's just gone crazy. So he's great. And then we do have some cameras to install outside, so we should be adding an additional 12 there. And then in the next year or so after this budget year, we plan on possibly doing an upgrade to 10 gig fiber between buildings instead of just having the one, with the ability to go to 40 if that becomes necessary in the future too. So
yeah, I'll just add too, on the Bluetooth beacons, we're hoping to, outside of what Mark said, where you walk in the classroom and it pops up with, here's how you operate the AV in this room. Maybe they walk by the IC store and, it sends them a 20% off coupon, and it brings them to the store when they were never going to go there. Or if there's events going on, like homecoming, if they walk by a building, it'll tell them, what's going on in that building as they get close. And so a lot of cool things that can be done with those beacons, and we're excited to get that out there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's fair to mention that's a super common use case with our retail customers as well, right? Using those API integrations to send frequent customers that coupon alert or whatever it is. So I think bringing that to a college campus, that's a brilliant idea.
Great.
All right, let's get into the fun stuff, the demo. So let me jump into your network. And we can kind of have this be more of an open flow conversation. You guys have multiple kind of networks here configured under, so you can lead the way. I can start off. I think definitely I'd love to show the security appliance, because I know that MX450 was really critical for you guys. So we can kind of dive into the 450. You can guide me through a feature set that were super useful for you. We'll definitely look at the cameras, and then if we have time, I'd love to talk about the access point.
Okay.
So on the MX450, we're pulling up here in your network. You can see anyone who's new to Meraki, you can configure multiple networks, and the more products you have, essentially, the more SKUs you're going to see off to the left-hand side here. So when I jump into the appliance status, kind of like an overview, right, of what's going on with that MX specifically. So you can see live data, you can see which ports are in use or not. You can look at connectivity over the last 2 hours. If you want to get a higher picture view, you can say, I want to see what's been going on for the last month. You can see network usage here, any addressing information associated with that particular security appliance. Is that box, that firmware box up to date? On this page here, you guys, are you frequently checking in, looking at network usage? Like, what's the main thing when you go and log in through Dashboard for, let's say, the MX that's mission critical?
Yeah, I definitely look at the up above there. There's the uplink section. I look at that just to see if things are going smooth, make sure we're not like overrunning any. We have currently we have a 1 gig connection and a 500 meg connection. One of our providers recently, 500 meg one, we got an offer from another ISP, and we went back to them and said, hey, what can you do? And they're actually going to bump us up to 4 gig, which the MX 450 is capable of, helping us out with. So that's great. So we just basically have 2 of them, and I also keep an eye on that too. We have 2 in 2 different buildings, and one is a hot spare for the other one, so it actually runs. You can see on the left-hand side there it says current, master, and primary, and you can go and see the status of both of those. And it's really nice if you do a firmware upgrade midday on the device, you can actually. It'll reboot the one, wait for the other one, then reboot that one, so it doesn't take anything down. You don't lose internet connection or anything like that. And that's been really great too. It's been handy for that. So we could do stuff like that without anybody even knowing what's going on. Yeah, and I mean the security center sort of stuff is the stuff that we use too, just to make sure that there's nothing real crazy going on. With like viruses and because we do use the advanced security license. So that's also been really, really helpful.
Right.
So you can see it gives you the retrospective malware detections and all that stuff, so you know when somebody has downloaded a malware thing, if it hasn't already blocked it, which it does in a lot of cases. Another thing we do all the time too is we actually go in and we actually block advertising in a lot of ways. Like we actually block if you open up a AOL page or something that's like older and has a whole bunch of ads on the side, it'll actually block all those. So that's been really great too. That's been another feature that's been really nice.
Right.
I'd say for our service desk too, they used to spend
Right.
at least probably half the day every day removing viruses. So we work on all the students' computers as a service that we provide. So anything can come in the door, but since we got the advanced security license, I mean, that has dropped dramatically.
Huge.
It's really maybe a little bit at the beginning of the year when they've been home for summer break or whatever, and they've, downloaded whatever.
Right.
So we take care of that, and then once they're back on our network for a while, it really calms down, and there's almost, nothing that comes in. It's been huge.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's something to mention to everyone joining the webinar. The MX is actually the only Meraki product that has 2 licenses, right? So there's the Enterprise, which is kind of like, let's say, standard, and then there's the Advanced Security, which 99.9% of my schools end up going with. That includes the advanced malware protection. That includes content filtering, right? These things where you don't need a third service provider to do that. It's all included. Awesome. So yeah, if you jump down here, I just went into the threat protection section, and you can see here there's intrusion detection and prevention. It's as simple as saying, disable, enable, right, prevention, detection, and it's already set up for you. So it's very, very easy to kind of streamline and jump through. I think another thing that you guys mentioned before was really big was traffic shaping, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
On that MX level. So we're jumping into your network here. Do you kind of want to go over the things you do in terms of threat protection and configuration here?
Yeah, probably more down at the bottom. I don't know that I really, honestly, right now have much because of the way we've set things up now. I don't have much set up in this specifically. It's more in the access points right now, but we used to limit when our connection was a little slower. We used to limit more of the like the Netflix sort of streaming, just to help in the the need to keep that maybe running at full throttle for everybody, but they could still stream in HD. We just made sure that sort of stuff was a little bit brought back. But we do that in the dorms specifically off the access points, which is nice to have that flexibility too, to be able to do it in multiple places.
Right.
But we have to go in here and actually, limit some of that stuff back in the IC one's fine. That's a good one. Yeah. And if you go down towards the bottom, some of that stuff may be a little more throttled back just to keep things. There each person has a per client limit, per client bandwidth limit. And we do try to block peer-to-peer and web file sharing, which includes some of the sites like, for shared and stuff like that, just to keep, malware sort of stuff from being downloaded and causing problems for the students. But yeah, it's been really great to be able to do it in both places because we can actually, change things how we want to on the fly pretty easily, and it does it across the whole thing, So.
Right. So on the MX level, obviously you're able to, apply those layer 7 traffic rules, but I don't think a lot of people know you can do that with the Meraki Wi-Fi, right? You can actually log in.
Right.
You can block applications entirely, certain sites you can throttle down. So the fact that you guys are able to utilize that tool is awesome.
Right. Absolutely.
We're now in wireless, and I wanted to show off something. A lot of people don't know you can do this, but you can actually upload a blueprint or a floor plan, and I see you guys have done that here. So do you want to talk about kind of how this is helpful in terms of navigating where my APs are in the building, jumping between them?
Right, and you can see the number of clients that have been connected to them at any one point and that sort of stuff. So we, we have that. We have it through the buildings, and it's nice with the heat maps and stuff like that. You can actually take a look at it per building and see where, people might be congregating and all that sort of stuff. It's also been nice just from the general overview of the entire campus because we've actually started really playing around with it. And I know it's a new feature. Wasn't sure if you did want to get into that, but the wireless health has been really, really nice for us more recently. I know they're still in beta, but it's been really, really nice. And having everything on the map has really helped with that too. But you can see all of the, like the client, the access points with issues and, what kind of latency those people are getting and depending on what devices they're using and stuff like that. So
I'm glad you brought up wireless health because I think it's important to note too, this is one of those features that if you were a Meraki wireless customer, this automatically showed up in Dashboard. So people often say, why do I need a license, that recurring fee? Well, it's not like you buy a piece of hardware and it necessarily ages over time. You're getting those updates. So I think the fact that you saw wireless health all of a sudden show up and it's been super, super helpful for you, that just kind of plays along with the narrative of these products get better over time, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've kind of gone over location heat maps, traffic shaping. I wanted to touch on briefly just how easy it is to configure an SSID and how many you can have. So if you log into wireless, you'll see there are two sections here, right? You have your monitor and your configure. This is where you push all your configuration changes. To actually just create an SSID, it's really easy. You click on this tab, you would hit show all my SSIDs, right? You see the ones that are currently enabled here. And if I go back here, I would just scroll to a section that if I didn't have, it looks like you guys have all 15, you would just configure a new SSID, set up the settings here to, match your criteria, whatever that would be, and you've set another one, right? So it looks like you guys are using 15 out of 15, which is pretty impressive. I haven't had a customer actually utilize all of them yet.
Yeah, we're actually, so one of the things that I'll say for the printers and gaming one there on the end there, so that's the way you create, you can change a VLAN on the MR30Hs. So those are for the wired only, they say. So that's one thing that we've had to add a couple more in for that. And we are looking at, like I said, we're replacing some of the old SSIDs. Those ICFAC ones will go away, and that IC faculty one will probably take over. We just haven't come up with the official name for it yet. So yeah, right now we're kind of in a bit of a transition. So we're working on sort of stuff like that, I think, yeah, so yeah, 15, that's probably about right with what we're using currently, but not all of them are turned on in every place. Like the gaming one isn't turned on in the, computer, like in all the academic buildings and stuff, and vice versa. There's some that are turned on in some places, some that aren't turned on in others.
Right, like, the IC FAC network, that's really for faculty and staff, doesn't need to be on in the residence halls. Right. So that part I think is nice too, that these are flexible. You can put them in certain places on and not on anywhere else or whatever you want to do. Right.
Right. Absolutely. And I want to take a minute, and I know we're kind of running short on time here, but I do want to show the Meraki cameras. And for that, I'm going to actually jump into my dashboard just to kind of show them off here. And I'd love to get your feedback on feature sets that are important to you guys. I mentioned this before on the call, but every Meraki product is going to look very, very similar in terms of how it's set up within Dashboard, and we do that on purpose, right? We want it to look uniform. And you guys had mentioned before the ideas behind tags, right? So making it super easy to find things or change permissions or credentials based on tags. Same idea with the cameras, right? And this is a flex table, so you can kind of drag and drop as you see fit, what's most important to you. You'll get a summary at the top of each page, which I think is kind of nice. Like, hey, if I have a camera offline, I'm getting notified right away, and you can set up motion-based alerts. Have you guys done that, or do you have automatic alerts set up if a camera were to go offline? What's your process there?
We do have emails go out to us and the security officers, but most of the time I usually just take care of getting it back up and running. And it's kind of a thing where we have, like, not all of our switches that we put out there originally were PoE, so, you know, we do have some midspans in place to power them, so, you know, we've had some of those have problems, and we just reboot those, and they're usually fine. So, yeah, we do have those alerts set up, which is really nice. We have the same thing with the APs, so we know when they go out, and switches and all that sort of stuff.
Right. Awesome. So let's dive into a camera and talk about how it works, and I'm definitely going to show off the alerting feature. You can search by tag, right? So I typed in 4th, and it takes me from 20 cameras down to 4. So I'm actually going to show you guys what it looks like in the San Francisco office right now. We can look at the stairwell, see people walking by. I think one of the features that is most critical or people utilize the most with these cameras is the motion search, right? So if there was an event that, say, occurred right here, I could highlight over that region. It's going to pull up all the events that match that. And I can even say, you know, let's say that event was at least 10 seconds long. I can click on the footage here. It's going to highlight in blue where there was motion, and you can take a look at that event. Right? So this idea behind you can set up the cameras and walk away, and then if there is something that happens, you can go back and easily find the footage. It's exactly what it's designed to do, right? And you can export. You decide how long the clip is, and then you can automatically export to an MP4 file. Do you guys do that quite frequently, or how often are you actually going back and pulling footage?
Yeah, the security officers do it quite a bit. I did it originally, like playing around with them and trying to figure stuff out, but they do go back quite a bit and look, and we basically right now most of the places that we have them are the entrances and exits, like the main entrances and exits of dorms, so they're actually facing like outside. They're not like, you know, they're not meant to be like, you know, breaking privacy or anything like that. They're actually just watching the doors in ingress and egress for that. But yeah, we do use that motion thing a lot and keep track of that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I think oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say the example I gave earlier of the issue with the Bitcoin mining. We were able to see through the area of, you know, walking around to each computer, one student, you know, going around to multiple machines, which would not be a normal thing. So it was helpful there as well.
Catching the thief in action.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yep.
And there is analytics just like there would be for any other product, and settings up at the top. So you can actually see, you know, how many people have been in my frame, right? These cameras have people counting ability. This is the V2, so these are the MV12s. So you can turn on people counting, see how many people have come into the frame, left the frame. We have motion heat maps, so really similar to access points, right? Where are my heavily trafficked areas of campus, which is pretty neat. You can look at network, so same as the MX as I was showing you before. You can ping the device, reboot the device. The beauty to Meraki, as you both can attest to, is you can do all of this remotely. I think the biggest thing too, though, is the quality and retention. So you can, you know, enable motion-based retention, which is basically going to tell you how many days of storage that camera is going to have. So have you guys actually gone in and configured this on a per camera basis, or how have you decided, you know, what are these cameras going to record in?
Yeah, it's pretty much all based on the camera. The ones that we have mostly the MR or MV21s, and we actually have them all based at 720, which is the max for those, and then we have the motion sensing thing turned on so that they store more than several days. But, I mean, that one there you can see it says 50 days plus, which is, I mean, it's great. I mean, some of the ones we have out there can do over 90 days, of recording, which is, I mean, if you did that on a regular system, you'd be saving up gigs and gigs worth of storage. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no on-prem storage necessary.
Right. On our old system, we were, using terabytes, or we still are as we're transitioning, and you can go back, maybe 30 days or
right.
something, maybe 40 days. So,
right.
Which was always good enough for them. And so, we've actually gotten a little bit better with the Meraki cameras on that part as well.
Right. And I did want to touch on, and you mentioned that you guys have this set up is motion alerts, right? So that idea of saying this camera should always send the alerts, never, or I could set it on a schedule. You highlight the region, right? Let's say you have a camera in an IDF closet, right, or the eSports room, and there should be no activity at a certain time. You set up a duration, the event is at least 3 seconds long, and it'll trigger an email, right, or a text message if you have motion in that frame. And you mentioned before you've already utilized this?
Yes.
Awesome.
We've started to look at some of that stuff too, yeah. Yep.
Right. Something with the cameras that's, I think, really unique to Meraki, and something that you already mentioned before, was this idea of sharing permissions and very quickly. So for those of you who are brand new to Meraki, there's typically 2 levels of privileges, let's call them. It's read-only or full, right, if you're a Meraki admin. Well, with the cameras, you can actually get much more granular. So if you needed to share footage, let's say there was a public safety incident that occurred on campus, I could scroll down here as an admin and invite the police chief by simply putting their name in their email, and then I decide what privileges they have, right? Is it specific cameras? Is it cameras by tags? You hit send, they automatically get a notification, and they become an admin. So do you guys want to elaborate, in a couple seconds here, how you've used this feature and how it's been helpful in any, certain situations for your school?
Yeah, just like you have it there on the left, we actually have the cameras in a separate, separate group, and we just go in and specifically give them, levels of access to that specific, network over on the left. But I have not used this much yet because I just did it that way with giving them the full, the full access to that specific network. But they don't see any of the other ones either, so that's been kind of nice for us. But it all depends on how you want to do it, depending on how your specific network's set up. It's nice because it has that flexibility of keeping everything in one network or separating it out a little bit here and there.
Right, exactly. Unfortunately, I'm wrapping up and I'm running out of time here. I want to give a huge thank you, Mark, Patrick. You guys have been so extremely helpful, and hopefully it was very insightful to the folks joining. I'm going to recap a couple slides here, but again, you guys, thank you so much for joining us today and going through your network with us.
No problem.
Thank you. All right, folks, on the call, wanted to go over a few last things in terms of Meraki and talking about leveraging Meraki for full stack deployment. We've gone over the suite of products, wasn't able to deep dive into everything, but Meraki has everything from access points to systems manager, our newest product, Meraki Insights, security appliance, cameras, and switches. So if you're interested in any of these, please reach out to your Meraki sales rep, and we're happy to give you more information and set up a trial with you. We do have a licensing model, and we mentioned that on the call today, right? So this idea behind you have a license associated with a Meraki piece of hardware. So if I have 5 APs, I have 5 licenses, right? So every product needs a license. In that license comes automatic firmware updates, 24/7 support, hardware warranty, right? So you're buying a piece of hardware that actually gets better over time, right? That piece of hardware stays up to date, which is not something many people can say. here are some next steps. So highly encourage you to check out our blog, especially if you're keen on getting new product updates. So meraki.cisco.com/blog, fantastic resource to go to, and if you want to stay up to date with new product information, that's the place to go to. If you want a risk-free evaluation, meraki.cisco.com/eval, and check out our community page. This is something new we launched a couple months ago. If you're a higher education customer and you want more information or want to chat with other people who've deployed Meraki in their networks in a higher ed environment, that's definitely the place to go. Want to mention a couple promos. One is specific to education, one is for all customers. So let's start with Buy 5 Stream Live. So from now until July 28th, so that's the end of our fiscal year, customers who purchase a combination of 5 high-density access points actually get a free security camera. So if you are interested in upgrading your APs, this is a perfect opportunity to also trial our cameras. And then the promo on the left is specific to, on the right is specific to education. So now through the end of October, we're offering special pricing on the cameras for our education clients. So higher ed and K through 12. If you want more information, visit that link or reach out to your Meraki sales rep. We are always happy to get you set up with a trial. Thank you. That is it for today. Sorry we didn't have time to answer any questions. Like to open it up at the end for folks. But again, thank you so much for joining. Appreciate your time, and hopefully you guys found this webinar helpful. Take care.